So, this happened to my friend Sarah last semester. She's a college student, super sweet, maybe a little too trusting, you know? She landed this awesome gig pet sitting for a couple down the street from campus. Now, this wasn't just a house, it was one of those black and glassbox mansions with an infinity pool and more tech than a NASA command center. The owners were in Europe for 2 weeks, and Sarah was getting paid a crazy amount just to feed a fluffy white Persian cat. The first few nights were fine. Peaceful. But this place was so huge and quiet it was almost spooky. Around night 4, she's super bored. The cat is asleep, the Wi-Fi is blazing fast, and she's just scrolling. She opens up this local social app, you know the ones, where people talk about neighborhood stuff, and she posts something like, "Seriously, is anyone else bored stiff tonight? Pet sitting in a fortress, wish I had company." Total, innocent vent. And she mentioned the house was like a fortress, right? Bad move. The next day, she's out walking the cat, yes, the spoiled thing got walks, and she gets a private message on that app. It was from some user she didn't know, and it just said, "Your fortress has a weak spot. It's the server access point behind the pool pump." Sarah just laughed it off. She figured it was some weird, techie neighbor being creepy, maybe trying to get her attention. She deletes the message and blocks the user. End of story, right? Nope. That night, she's watching a movie in the huge living room. She has her feet up, the cat is on her lap, and everything is super chill. Then, the lights flicker. Not the house lights, but the status light on the main security panel next to the kitchen. It usually glows a solid, comforting blue. Now, it's flashing red. And a silent notification pops up on the screen, "System overridden. Backup power engaged." She freezes. This isn't a power outage, the lights in the house are fine. She remembers the message from earlier, "Server access point behind the pool pump." Suddenly, it wasn't a joke. Sarah grabs the cat, shoves it into the laundry room, and immediately dials the owner's emergency number. She's whispering, hyperventilating. She tells the owner what's happening, and the owner, who is panicked, says, "That access point. Only our security company knows about that. And it requires a biometric key to bypass." The call keeps cutting out. Sarah hangs up and realizes the Wi-Fi is dead. The server must be completely shut down. She's in this enormous, expensive house that is now essentially just a normal, dark house. She's looking out the window, and she sees it, the motion sensor lights on the massive back patio are staying off. They are always on. And then she hears a sound. Not a loud sound, just the distinct, gentle clink of a sliding glass door being opened, the kind of sound a door makes when it's not forced, but quietly slid off its track. Someone is inside. She sprints. She doesn't go for the front door, she knows she's been found out. She runs up the main staircase to the 3rd floor, which is just the master suite. She locks the heavy bedroom door and hides in the walk-in closet, which is basically another small room. She can't call the police because her cell service is being jammed. It has to be. As she huddles there, she hears footsteps. They are slow, deliberate, and heading up the stairs. She's holding her breath, listening. They're coming closer, and then they stop right outside the master bedroom door. And here's the absolute worst part, she hears this metallic, whirring sound, like a tiny drill or a motorized pick, and the deadbolt on the master bedroom door clicks open. The door swings open with a silent, heavy thud against the wall. Then, a low, calm voice echoes into the bedroom, "I know you're here, Sarah. You told me you were bored and lonely. I'm here to keep you company." She didn't wait. She bolted from the closet, ran to the far wall, and threw open the window overlooking the pool. It was a 3-story drop, but there was a huge, dense hedge below. She didn't think, she just jumped. She tumbled through the hedge, ripping her clothes and skin to shreds. but she was out. She ran all the way to a nearby coffee shop and had them call the police. The police went back to the house, and guess what? Nothing. No forced entry. All the doors were closed, the lights were on, and the only evidence was the cat, who had scratched up the laundry room door trying to get out. The security system was back online, humming that steady blue. The only thing they found? The master bedroom deadbolt was broken. It was a clean break, like it had been dismantled by a professional. And outside, behind the pool pump, was a tiny, melted piece of plastic that the police later said was a fragment of a custom-made, multi-frequency security fob. The stalker was never caught. The police figured the suspect heard the sirens in the distance and slipped out the same way he slipped in. Sarah, she never pet sat again, and she definitely doesn't post about being home alone on social media anymore. Because what's scarier than a stranger? A stranger who is a ghost in the machine. When I was a junior in high school, my parents finally felt comfortable enough to leave me completely alone for a whole weekend. I wasn't 12 anymore, I was 17, practically an adult, and they were going upstate for a quick wedding. The deal was simple: I'd study, I'd eat the microwave meals they left, and I definitely wouldn't throw a party. To me, it sounded like 2 days of uninterrupted gaming in absolute peace. Friday night, everything felt great. I ordered takeout, binged a movie, and settled into the huge, silent house. Around 11:30 p.m., I was just getting ready to head up to bed when my phone rang. Now, I have maybe 4 friends who would call this late, so I checked the screen. It was an unknown number. I figured it was just some spam call that slipped through, so I hit ignore. Less than 30 seconds later, the number called again. Okay, that's weird. Spammers don't usually double tap. I answered it, figuring I'd just hang up if it was a recording. Hello? Nothing. Just this dead silence on the line. No static, no breathing, just the pure, unsettling quiet of an open connection. I waited maybe 5 seconds, which felt like forever, and then hung up. I remember thinking, great, some creep just wasted my time, and tossed my phone onto the couch. I went upstairs, but that dead silence had completely ruined the quiet night. I was a little jumpy now. I'd only been lying in bed for about 10 minutes, trying to read a graphic novel, when the phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time, I didn't even pick it up, I just watched it ring until it went to voicemail. I muted my phone and told myself that whoever it was, they'd stop. They did not. For the next hour and a half, the same number called 4 more times. Each call was timed perfectly, almost like the person was waiting for a specific interval. I'd unmute my phone just long enough to see the unknown number flash on the screen, then I'd mute it again. I started to get genuinely angry, and then that anger faded into a cold, sick feeling. This wasn't some random telemarketer, this was someone harassing me, and they knew I was alone. That's when I finally called my friend, Max. Max immediately said it was a prank, probably some random kid from school who got a burner app. He tried to calm me down, but I told him, they keep calling at regular intervals, Max. If it was just a prank, they'd stop or say something funny. While I was talking to him, another call came in, and I let Max hear the buzzing on the side of his ear. He just said, "Dude, block the number and go to sleep. They'll give up." I blocked it right there. The relief was immediate. I finally started to relax. Max was right, blocking the number fixed it. I put on headphones and started listening to a podcast to drown out the house sounds. I must have fallen asleep sometime after 2 a.m. I woke up suddenly to the sound of my landline ringing. Not my cell phone, the actual house phone, downstairs in the kitchen. My parents only ever gave that number out to immediate family and the pizza place, which had closed years ago. My blood ran ice cold because I knew, instinctively, that this call was connected to the blocked number on my cell. I crept out of my room and stood at the top of the stairs, listening. The phone kept ringing and ringing, a jarring sound in the absolute black silence of the house. I had to know. Moving like a ghost, I tiptoed down to the kitchen, grabbed the receiver, and whispered, "Hello?" This time, there was no dead air. Instead, I heard a raspy inhale on the other end, like a person had been holding their breath and just let it out. Then came the sound, not loud, but perfectly clear, like the caller was only a few feet away. "Your parents are going to be so mad about the window." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I froze, every hair on my body standing up. I dropped the receiver and didn't even wait for a dial tone. I bolted back upstairs and locked myself in my parents' bedroom. I was shaking too hard to grab my cell. That line, "Your parents are going to be so mad about the window," could only mean one thing: the caller wasn't just watching my phone, they were watching the house. And the only window they would notice was the one I'd left unlocked in the laundry room to cool the house off earlier that night. I fumbled for my cell phone, found it, and immediately called my dad, my voice a shaking mess. He sounded groggy, but I rushed through the story, from the unknown number to the landline to that whisper. I remember telling him, "He knows I left the window open. He's in the house, Dad." The moment my dad said he was calling 911 and driving straight back, I heard a faint, distinct creak from the bottom of the stairs. It wasn't loud, but in the total silence of the house, it hit me like a drum. It was the sound of a heavy foot pressing down on an old, wooden step, a sound I only ever heard when my dad came home late. I hung up, not waiting for my dad's next word. I scrambled under my parents' heavy king-sized bed. The air down there smelled like old wool and dust, thick and suffocating. I pulled the heavy, dark comforter down over the side, trying to create a shield. My heart was a frantic woodpecker against the floorboards. I was so panicked, I felt dizzy, and I had to focus entirely on just not breathing too loudly. Then, the footsteps started. They were slow, deliberate, heavy steps, not running, not sneaking, but searching. They moved through the ground floor for what felt like 10 minutes, stopping and starting. I heard the faint clink of something metal, maybe a drawer handle, being checked in the kitchen. Finally, they started coming up. I heard the footsteps on the stairs, one after another, slow and unhurried. The confidence of that stride was the scariest part. He wasn't scared of me. He moved through the upstairs hall, past my own bedroom door, where they paused. I imagined him standing there, looking at the posters on my wall. Then the steps continued, slow and measured, until they stopped right in front of my parents' bedroom door. I could see the dark, shifting shadow under the door gap, a terrifying silhouette of shoes. The air went completely dead again. I waited, silently counting every beat of my heart, certain the knob was going to twist. Instead, I heard a slow, deliberate scratching sound on the outside of the door. It wasn't the sound of fumbling, it was a rhythmic, calculated scrape, like someone was drawing a large, dull object across the wood grain, right at eye level. Scrape. Scrape. Pause. It was a threat, a way of saying, "I know you're in here, and I'm letting you listen to me decide what to do next." After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps retreated. They moved away from the door, then slowly descended the stairs, disappearing back into the quiet darkness below. The silence returned, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the silence of a hunter who has confirmed his target's location and is now moving to set a trap. I stayed under that bed for 30 minutes until the sirens started screaming down the street, loud enough to drown out the sound of my own panic. You know that feeling when you first get your license? All that freedom? Yeah, I didn't feel that. I felt pure, stomach-dropping terror. My friend Chloe felt it even worse. She's the kind of person who double-checks her locks 3 times, and driving at night was her ultimate fear. This happened a few years ago. Chloe was moving back home from college, and she was driving her old beat-up sedan late one night, about an hour from her parents' house. It was raining, and she was on this dark, tree-lined road, the kind where the streetlights are spaced a mile apart. She was tense, white-knuckling the wheel, trying to follow the GPS, when her tire pressure light came on. A solid, angry orange. She panicked and pulled over immediately. It was the absolute worst spot, a tiny, muddy shoulder next to a huge, dark forest. She tried to call her dad, but her phone was dead. She was just sitting there, shaking, when she saw headlights coming up behind her. A dark pickup truck slowed down, then pulled in about 50 feet in front of her car, completely blocking her in. A minute later, the driver's side door creaked open, and this massive shadow of a man got out. He came to her window, tapping politely. Chloe slowly rolled it down just an inch. He was maybe in his late 30s, clean-cut beard, wearing a nice, reflective safety vest. He was smiling wide, maybe too wide. He said, "Flat tire, sweetie? Don't worry. I saw you pulled over. I'm a mechanic at the garage just down the road. Happens all the time out here. I'll take a quick look." Chloe felt this huge wave of relief. A good Samaritan, right? She unlocked her door. He walked to the front of her car and popped the hood. He spends a minute staring at the engine, which, by the way, was fine, and then comes back. He says, "Okay, the engine is running a little rough, but the battery terminal is loose. I can tighten that up. But I saw the problem, miss. You have a nail in your back right tire." He points. Chloe gets out, looks, and sure enough, there's a small, shiny silver head of a nail buried in the sidewall. "You are not going to make it far on that," he says. "You're lucky I saw you. Now, I can't change it here, it's too dangerous. What's the address where you're staying? I'll follow you home and change it there, no charge." Chloe should have said no. She should have just driven to a brightly lit gas station. But she was exhausted and trusting. She just wanted to be home. Her parents' house was only about 10 minutes away. She gives him the cross street and turns to get back in her car. As she reaches for the door handle, he claps his hand on the roof of her car, right above her head. It was a heavy thud. He says, "Wait, before you go, can you do me a favor? My phone died. Could you just put my number in your contacts? You know, in case I get stuck on the way." He pulls out this little piece of paper with a handwritten number. Chloe takes the paper, and as she's doing it, he leans in, really close, and he's looking past her, into the dark interior of her car, doing a quick scan. She felt her skin crawl. He says, "You seem like you're alone tonight, huh? Drive safe." That's when the relief vanished and the actual fear started. He didn't just ask for her number, he wanted to see inside her car. And why would a mechanic need her number if he was just following her for 10 minutes? Chloe gets back in, heart pounding, and drives away. The pickup truck follows, exactly 10 car lengths back, never getting closer or farther. The minute she hits her driveway, she floors it, throws the car into the garage, and hits the automatic door button. She scrambles out of the car and runs inside, locking the main door and peering through the peephole. The pickup truck stops right in front of her house. The driver stays put. He doesn't move. He's just sitting there, running his headlights on her house. Like he was checking something off a list. She calls 911 immediately. But while she's on the phone, the man finally puts the truck in gear and slowly drives away. The dispatcher told her they'd send a unit, but by the time they got there, he was gone. The police confirmed the nail in the tire was real, but they were super skeptical about the rest of it, saying it was just a coincidence. But listen to this, later that week, Chloe's dad had a private security guy check their system. They found a tiny, black magnetic GPS tracker stuck to the wheel well of her rear right tire, the same tire the man pointed out. It was sophisticated. The security expert explained that the loose battery terminal part was a diversion to get her to open the hood, where he could stick the tracker on the car. And when he pointed out the nail, that was confirmation. He didn't cause the flat, he just needed to make sure she was in distress, confirm the house address, and see that she was alone. The phone number request was just a move to get her to drop her guard and lean into the car so he could see the empty passenger seat. The man was gone, but he knew exactly where she lived, and he knew she was an easy, nervous target who lived alone. They never saw him again, but Chloe's dad bought her a new car with no tracker attached. And to this day, Chloe won't pull over on a dark road for anything. That simple act of roadside help was really just the perfect, premeditated setup to figure out where her safe haven was.